If they paying me, I'm all good. But are we? Are we all good? You working only because of a regulation or DBE status or a female designation? I call this the penny effect. You have worth, but it's typically not enough to build longevity on its own. I use the analogy of a penny laying on the ground. It has value, but is it enough for you to stop and pick it up? The reality is being hired for a job because of a regulation is a great door opener to demonstrate your true worth. Nobody knows your value until you show them. Make sense? The perceived value can be totally wrong without presenting the facts from close inspection. The same applies to you and your business. Don't let a customer work with you only because of a regulations. You always want to demonstrate your real worth and true value. After close inspection, you'll find that there are some pennies out there that's worth a lot more than 1 cent. Just like there could be small businesses here in this room that could dominate their niche and become giant businesses tomorrow. But here's another rule, and I want you to hear this rule because I preach it day in and day out. You can't give value to someone until they understand or appreciate what you're doing or what you've done. It's only then you can hope to have a successful outcome. Now let me share a relevant story with you. Remember when I said earlier, I don't drive no faster than my angels can fly? I'm about to tell you why. Many years ago, in the early morning hours, I was on vacation driving to New York, but I didn't make it. I've been driving with my driver's side window down, and a huge bug flew in, hit me in the head, and began flopping around between me and my steering wheel. And long story short, the road turned, and I didn't. I hit the butt end of a guardrail at a cruising speed of This is what that looked like. Now, it's interesting that I got somebody in the room that knows this story very well. Because truth be told, it's not a part of the story, but his mom saved my life. That was my angel that day. The officer asked me what happened, and I told him about the bug. He later said that I would have to go to court and face the judge, and he would determine my penalties. I said, penalties? I done totaled out a car, I'm in a wreck. He said, yeah, that bug is going to cost you a lot of money. I was thinking to myself, as the kids would say, OMG. It was like 2 or 3 months before I would have to show up to court. And I started getting notices from attorneys who wanted to represent me. I knew at that point I was really in trouble. I needed to develop some relationships in that town so I could start mapping out a strategy. So I started calling up a few of those attorneys to find out what their rates and what was involved. Let me tell you, those attorney fees, they were crazy. $1,500, $2,700. One was nearly $5,000. As luck would have it, I found an attorney that walked me through the process, and through our conversation, he told me exactly what he needed to get from me get me out of my situation. By the questions that I was asking, he told me that he didn't think I needed him and suggested that I could represent myself. We laughed and I said, "Show you right." I gathered the information the attorney told me about, proof of insurance, driving history, and of course I packaged up my last item that I call my closer. When the day came, I headed back up the road 4 hours to the courtroom. The courtroom was packed, and I was lucky that day. The judge did a reverse call order, meaning that normally they start with the A's, but that day, he started with the Z's. And Webb was first on the docket for the day. And yes, I was ready, excited, and prepared. I felt like I was there to close a business deal. The judge called me up, looked over my accident report, then he asked me if I had any documentations I wanted to submit. I handed over my proof of insurance and my driving history. He reviewed the documents, then the judge turned and asked the officer who was there that night what happened. The officer simply stated what I had told him that night. A bug flew into his car and he got distracted. The judge then looked at me and asked me what happened. I brought out my closer. I had packaged up in a sandwich bag a big cicada-like insect. I got it from the grill of my car several weeks before and brought it into my courtroom. The bailiff took it to the judge and he started laughing and said, "I've been sitting on this bench for 40 years and no one has ever brought a bug into my courtroom." The whole courtroom started laughing. The judge said, "Oh yeah, I can see how you got distracted. This is amazing. We're gonna let you go, Mr. Webb, and you can take this with you," replying to the bug. "You have a good day, okay?" The whole courtroom started clapping as I was leaving. It didn't sound like a courtroom at all. It was crazy. Remember what I talked about earlier in this presentation about being something different, giving something meaningful, doing something unforgettable? I told you these actions set a tone and gives value to who you are and what you do. I also stated you can't give value to someone until they understand or appreciate what you're doing or what you've done. Only then you can hope to have a successful outcome. Even with my clean driving record and proof of insurance, it was the judge actually seeing that insect that sold him. He understood my situation and had an appreciation for my effort. The relationship I established with that attorney weeks before allowed me to prepare for what was to come. As consultants, that's our job with you, preparing you for what's to come. I took his advice, and it sure got me out of a jam that day. So now, you should be getting a picture of how success and value goes hand in hand. And the initial outcome can hinge on a customer's perceived value of you and your offering. Always remember, it's not the answers that we give that's most important, but it's the questions that are asked that points you in the right direction towards success. So what's the key question that you should ask? Anybody know? Why should I do business with you? I wrote the book on it. You want to do business, say, with the Tyler Group because of the client value we offer. In the business world, what do we call this value? Benefits. Oh yeah, it's all about the benefits that you offer. And the most important business-related benefits involved what I call the critical 5. Look at this for a second. Does that make sense to you? Maybe it don't. The critical 5 are listed in my order of importance, with relationships being number 1. The critical 5 is showcased in a light bulb illustration because this can be your light and give you guidance. Here's a question for you. Why do you think relationship is positioned as my number 1? Anybody? The right relationship has the power to support and adjust expectations of the additional 4. But make no mistake, all 5 items are critical. Are y'all with me on that? The right relationship has the power to support and adjust expectations of the additional 4. Make sense? Let's get into them. Relationship. Relationship starts with a perception first. Did y'all know that? It's perception. You're walking to shake a hand and you already done sized up whoever you walking to. Today, if you're meeting somebody, you sizing them up before you even get there, before you even speak. You already sizing them up. This perception is validated with communications, facts, and the benefits you offer. Do y'all talk about any benefits when you meeting somebody? No, you probably don't. You don't even know to. But it's a simple process. It will either drive your business forward or you'll fizzle out. Your satisfaction should not come through someone else's suffering or your suffering. I hear all the time, you're not getting paid on time? Something's not right? That's not the intent of the relationship building process. The goal is to build long-term satisfaction and trust. Relationships are said to be the currency of life. Y'all agree with that? Maybe not. Let's talk service. Victor and I are doing this presentation today because so many times we find business owners are focused on anything they think they can do rather than what they have a specialty or expertise for. This is a mistake. I know you want to make the money, but building awareness for your service or expertise will have far greater long-term success with building your customer base. Be that business within your niche of customers that's known for the value you give and the benefits you offer. Your goal is to take ownership of the customers within this group and dominate. Let's talk quality. Quality sets the standard by which you are measured by your customers and against your peers. Showcasing quality of your service is a great way to build company value. The quality of your service or product is not what you put into it, but it's the benefits your client or customer gets out of it. Always remember, quality is remembered long after the price is forgotten. Let's talk dependability. How many of y'all would say you are 100% dependable? Show of hands. 100% dependable? Fewer hands. Fewer hands. Yeah, yeah. Dependability is nothing more than a trust factor. Can I count on you to keep me informed? Will you be there when I need you most? Can I count on you to look for a way and not a way out? These are a few questions that, if answered positively, builds both company value and personal relationships. Last but not least, your favorite, price. When we start ranking the 5 critical elements of marketing, price tends to be everyone's number one. Why is that? Depending on the customer, that's where they place all the value. Basically, low bid wins, and that's that. The question is, if you have a great relationship with the decision maker, you're known for your superior service, top-notch quality, and unquestionable dependability, do you think they would throw your bid out every time? Victor will speak on how to shape and create a winning bid. Your attention and focus should be squarely on making sure it's the right bid on the right job. The importance of price is truly a balancing act with you, your market competition, and your customer. Remember this: price draws attention if there's any confusion over my order of importance. Number 1, relationship. Number 3, quality versus number 5, price. Just remember, quality is remembered long after the price is forgotten. Don't let your price make only a temporary relationship. Validate your price by including all the critical elements within your marketing strategy. This presents your true value and why you're worth your asking price. Make sense? To wind up this evening, we started this presentation talking about rules and the key to success. So I leave you with this thought in mind. When you live your life in the service of others, following the rules, giving value, and being associated with people helping people, then others are likely to perceive you as being a champion. And being perceived as a champion is your key to long-term success. Thank you.
Once you know that you are a specialist or expertise, you have expertise in something, that's the right project. But the objective is to make a profit on each and every job you do. You have to. You have to. And so what do you look for? You have to have the expertise in the type of work that you're going after. The project has to be the size that fits your company. It must be in a geographical area that you are comfortable with and you know all the regulations. You have to pick the type customer that best works with you. Your staff must have an expertise in what you are doing. And you have to have key personnel that will support you in the office and outside the office. And management maturity. That's not talking about age. It's talking about the way you manage your business efficiently. And then knowing your financials. I put knowing your financials in red because that's what we found consulting with small businesses. That's one of the last things y'all look at. the first thing you look at, Curtis, get me a job. You're a marketer. And Curtis says, what kind of job? And they can't explain it. There's some homework that has to be done when we're talking about bidding and finding opportunities. So let's talk about knowing your financials. And a lot of this takes homework to find out. It'll probably take a year or two to find out what you're good at. And once you're good at, you start marketing. You go back to what Curtis is talking about and getting down those talking points and finding those relationships that you need to develop. The first thing you got to understand, there's a difference. Is there a difference between profit and profitability? They're used interchangeably quite often. My business made a profit last year. My business was profitable. Let's go back. Does making a profit automatically mean your business is profitable? No. Why? Well, I'll tell you. Profit is the excess of revenue and income. So we know that statement, right? Profit equals revenue minus expenses. That's on your profit and loss statement. Profitability is the size of the profit relative to the size of the business. Rate of return on investment. He said, Victor, I do concrete. What that rate investment? Yeah. Let me walk. Don't get off the bus. Stay on the bus. We're going to go somewhere, okay? So I'm going to call in this consultant. And this consultant is going to talk about numbers right quick. This is going to be a quick lesson. And I always put this up. Read it. I understand that when engineers talk about numbers, everybody want to sleep, right? Don't sleep. Let's go. Profit and loss statement. This is a typical profit and loss statement condensed for a construction company. You got your income, you got your direct costs, you got your job overhead, and you got gross profit, and you see your G&A or general administrative expenses. Then you got down at the bottom net income. That's the way it's supposed to look like. 95% of the businesses we go into do not look like this for construction or manufacturing. Do not have assigned numbers. That's what we do. We go in and recreate what it should look like. Now, if you're in the service industry or you're a consultant, it'll look like this. If you do TDOT type work or federal work, it better look like this so that you can get your indirect rate schedule so you can be classified as limited or unlimited pre-qualification. And then at the bottom, you got your net income. If you have a service company, it'll look a little different than that. But right now, we're just talking about income right now. We're talking about income. We're talking about profitability. Just giving you a quick look at a profit and loss statement for the industry. The question this consultant says, is it possible for a business to generate a profit and not be profitable? Jacob said yes. Answer, profit is a necessary but insufficient criteria for a business to be profitable. What do you mean, consultant? Let's do a case study. Let's consider two contractors, Jack and Jill. Okay? Jack and Jill. Let's say, to keep it simple, each contractor invests $1,000 into their business. Let's say that's overhead. Just say $1,000, just whatever you want to think, just $1,000. Jack Company, LLC, at the end of the year, he had total receipts of $1,002. Jill Company Incorporated, at the end of the year, she had ending receipts of $1,500. Jack made a profit of $2. Jill made a profit of $500. Are these operations profitable? Let's see. In Jill's case, she is making an annual return on investment of 50%. Jill's business is considered profitable. She's smiling. Now let's talk about Jack. His business made a profit, a paltry return of 0.2%. Had Jack invested in a risk-free bond yielding 2% from the federal government, he would have made more money for his business. So we told Jack, Jack, you did a return of $2 on 1,000, but by most reasonable estimates, your business is not profitable. And so we had to tape up Jack's mouth because he started saying all types of words. And you would do the same thing, right? So let's improve his profitability. So Jack hires a consultant and kind of go over with him. The consultant says, first, step one, know your costs. You need good accounting records. You need good record keeping. And of course, since Jack's a contractor, he needs to keep records on labor, materials, equipment, subcontractor, other direct costs, and job site overhead. We'll talk about that in a second. What's the second step? Understand your costs. The cost relationship between labor burden, job site overhead, and home office overhead. Everybody knows that. Yeah, but let's look at this cost structure right quick. When you give a price, you give a price of your total cost of that job. That price is made up of total cost and a profit. But let's go down to the bottom. You first must start with labor, materials, equipment, and subcontractors. Get that cost. That becomes your direct cost. Those costs need to be supervised. So you need to add a job site overhead. That's the supervision cost to provide what the direct costs that the customer wants. That's where a lot of small businesses lose money, not properly capturing what the job site overhead is, or what the office overhead calculated. These are mathematical formulas, by the way. They're not something that you pull out and say, I think I need this. They're mathematical formulas. You can do it that way. They become job costs, and the job cost plus the overhead, office overhead, becomes total cost. And then profits at the end that you hope the job doesn't touch. That goes into the bank. But you got to be accurate with the labor, materials, equipment, and subcontractor costs so that these allocation of job site and office overhead is allocated to the job so that all your cost is covered. Jack did not do that. He just wanted the job. Jill did. She went through all this exercise. So, like I said, this is understanding costs. Once you understand costs, now you have to control your costs. You're on the job site. So you got to manage the scope, the time, the budget, the materials, the schedule, and the team. All this drives profit. Then you got to track your costs, job costing, contract accounting, purchase orders, budget versus actual reporting, invoices. The invoices have to be timely and accurate. All this creates profitability, not a high price. Efficiency creates profitability. 5, analyze your costs, your P&L, your balance sheet, do financial analysis, do key performance indicator, performance, benchmarking, and relationship with your banks and surety. All this drive profitability. Why do some businesses find it difficult to consistently make a profit? Statistics was, I wrote down these statistics. I got it from, I think, Construction Business Owner magazine. 66% of companies have no specific profit goals. If you don't want to make a profit, don't have a profit goal. 70% of companies have no overhead goals. 50% of companies have no sales volume goals. 92% of all company employees have no written goals. You have to do these things to increase profitability or have consistent profits in your business. This has to be talked about all the time. Usually, November, December, that's the planning year for all businesses, but it needs to be occurring throughout the year because you're doing actual, estimate versus actual, budget versus actual, and making adjustments. So let's look at another case study. I'm an engineer, so it's going to be more numbers, right? If you go to sleep, it's okay. It's early. Just don't snore. All right. Steps to improve your profitability. Let's look at this. Here's a quick example. We do this all the time with small business that allows. A lot of times we go in with Marshall and JB and Sandra. I go into a company. We talk numbers. A lot of them do not want to talk numbers. They want to talk marketing. The ones that do talk numbers, they get it. I got plenty of case studies of how this works and works well. Any company want to raise their hand that have worked with us with the numbers? All the profitable ones raise their hand. Thank you. A lot of people don't because they don't want to know what they make. I don't care what you make. I want you to make a profit. Let me see what you have. Don't give me fake books. But anyway, number one. Let's look at this example. A company annual overhead is projected at $400,000. You know how much it costs to run your company, whether you have a contract or not. So I'm using $400,000 for example. You want a return on your overhead at 20%. Now, this stuff is not pulled out of the air. It is calculated. It has a history. But we're using this, and I'll show you how we do it. Your pre-tax profit goal is $80,000. So that's 400,000 times 20%, because I said I want a 20% overhead return. Therefore, your overhead and profit goal is $480,000. $400,000 is run the business. 80 is to put in the bank, to invest in equipment, to give employee raises, to give employees benefits, to buy their house in the Cayman Islands, whatever it might want to do with your profit. That's your. By studying past contracts, by studying market trends, we don't do that. But Curtis and I and my gang, we do it for you if you're in the DB program. We determined to achieve a 20% total overhead and profit markup is a 16.67 gross profit margin. And I'll show you that in a bit. Just stick with me. So, to determine how much volume needed to hit your goals, you divide the overhead by the profit projected, and you see the $480,000 divided by that 0.1667, and that will give you an average markup of 20%. Now this right here is kind of explains this a little bit. Markup is the percentage you mark up your job costs when you're bidding a job. Markup is the percentage. Gross profit is the total overhead and profit you make as a percentage of total sales. Markup is used in estimating. Gross profit is used in analysis and in forecasting. It is not to be used, gross profit percentage is not to be used when you estimate. Let me show you why. You can find this chart anywhere. If you want a gross profit of 25.93%, you need to mark your costs up by 35%. If you want a gross profit of 23.08%, you need to mark your costs up by 30%. How many businesses did I find that they were marking up their bids by the gross profit? And you see where it should have been. A lot of money left on the table. A lot of businesses not surviving because they're not allocating costs correctly. That's simplest I can put it. So let's look at this. This is about understanding costs, understanding risk, and job sizing. Most of the time, people will do a labor, materials, equipment, subcontract, and other costs. They add it up and get a total direct cost for the job. Then they say, I'm going to mark it up 40%. A lot of people do that, and they give a bid of, what's that, 195,440. Watch this. I'm going to talk to you about multiple overhead allocation. This is a term that a lot of us don't know about. And then I'm going to show you multiple overhead allocation. You got a markup for your labor burden. You got a markup for your job site supervision. You got a markup for your home office overhead. And you got a markup for your profit. Multiple overhead allocation, multiple markups. How many people do that? Don't answer. This is very important in construction. You want to make a profit, we'll help you do this. But it takes homework. A lot of people don't want to do the homework. I want y'all to make a profit. I want you to be sure who you're marketing to over there, that whoever you're marketing to, if they give you a contract or you're awarded a contract, I want you to make a profit. So if you use multiple overhead markup, guess what? You got a project A and you got the same project B, but the B contractor used multiple overhead markup based on how he runs his company or how she runs it, because Jill did a pretty good job, didn't she? Look what Jill's bid versus what Jack bid was. 195, Jill bid 204. Let's look at risk. Same job, same direct total cost, but now, where is our risk on construction mostly? On labor. See where labor is $85,000, no subcontractors. Sometimes we don't account for risk when we bid. And you see what his new number is. That's why this bidding stuff is not to be taken lightly if you want to stay in business and be profitable while you're staying in business. This is the way to do it. And you can't do this overnight. Usually it takes us about 2 to 3 years to get a company to run this efficiently and make profit. Those that raise their hand, I know one back there, I won't, doing very well. It makes sense. It works. And he said, well, I won't win any jobs with it. Talk to Curtis. Curtis just went through how you can market and find the right customer, and the price is the last thing that they consider. Instead of the first three. The first three, price, price, price. Build the relationship, get the quality, go on down your list, dependability. I need to remember that, Curtis. Let me go on. Which describes your profitability outlook? Is it this? Or is it this picture? Now, I just went through this. Keep it to yourself. Don't answer out loud. Which is your profitability outlook? I want it to be this guy, okay? So, it pays to consider the questions and the equations to learn the road to profitability. You must consider not only how much profit you are making with your business, but also how much profit you could have made if you invested in something else. Because you can take that same $100,000 that you pump in your business every year and put it in a growth mutual fund and make more than, behind that backhoe or more behind that computer doing engineering drawings. Look at the rate of return that you're getting from your business to see, one, if it's the right line of work that you're in. You might need adjustment. The critical question is whether your operation is making a profit, but whether your operation is profitable and how profitable. So the conclusions is understand profit and profitability, okay? Everybody know what, you can make a profit on a job. That don't mean you're profitable. Successful business owner keep good business records and perform regular financial analysis. The financial analysis indicate if it indicate it be beneficial, consider changing the mix of services to improve your outcome. Well, that's the wrong one. No, visit Marketplace Halls, but may the profits be with you. Wrong slide. May the profits be with you. I stopped there and kind of finished up early to see if anybody have any questions before we go to the next session. We're a little bit ahead of schedule, just like an engineer. Curtis, anybody have a question for Curtis? Tell Curtis don't tell that bug story no more. Anybody have a question for me? You don't want anybody to know about you? Well, good. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so in your examples A and B, how does Jill win when A submitted a lower bid? How do you accomplish that?
Yeah, that's a Curtis question. Of course,
Obviously, B is the most accurate.
yeah, B is most, and one of the things is what Curtis went through is key to that. The second part of that, especially if you are comfortable with your business, and especially if you're talking to a person that is at a vice president level or higher at the other business. And I've seen it done. Sometimes it doesn't hurt to show them how you arrived at that, to show that there's a methodology behind my madness. I've done that with several businesses where the estimator who was the vice president was questioning the price. And I usually don't do this, but it was a good company. And I went with them on his negotiating call. And we were talking about pricing and this and that. The job is this, yes, we have that in there. And the job, yes, we have it in there. And so I stopped and said, this guy knows what he's doing. I said, I'm a consultant with him, blah, 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 blah. And I took out the spreadsheet and laid everything on the table. And they read every number, even his markup numbers and everything. When the methodology was shown to him, the negotiation closed up. I guarantee you, it happened. And they had a long relationship. Now, a lot of people do not want to show their books. That's up to you. That was just one marketing. It was a good contract that this guy had, and they were battling over with these numbers. I came to the second meeting. He went to the first meeting by himself. The second meeting I came, and I sit down, and I showed a spreadsheet of the cost of the individual laborers, the equipment, the materials, everything. Of course, it was a $2 million contract for the small business. It was something that he could do and do great, and laid it out. And so it depends on what you want to do, but most of it is he wouldn't have got in that office in the first place if he didn't do what Curtis did.
Yeah, let me say this about low bids. Most of the time, you're in a low bid situation because that's all you are discussing. I work with a young man, and he started at the low of low. And he had a cleaning service. And rather I'd preach to him, it's about niching. You need to figure out, how do I dominate a niche, a little bitty piece, just small. Most of us are just in line. We throwing the same bid everybody else is throwing, and it's just numbers. What this young guy did, he was the best at cleaning these little stadiums. He didn't try to go after the big commercial buildings. Just this past Friday, he cleaned stadiums for 3 years. In 3 counties, he picked up 11 schools. Year 4, one of the schools said, I want you to look at our campus. He went from no jobs. He couldn't keep a job. Now, this past Friday, he's almost at $500,000 in contracts from picking up paper in a stadium. His whole reversal is, let me show you what I'm all about. Let me show you my worth. They figured out, it's somebody else, we just had this conversation. They turned in a bid. He's sitting in this room. I don't know if he want to be recognized or not. But he turned in a bid. They told him his bid was too cheap. Go back and put some more money on it. He had the right relationship. Now, most of us, you ain't gonna fight, you're not gonna see it because all you're doing is shuffling price. It's just shuffling price. And if you remember what I talked about in terms of relationships are everything. It controls the service that you're in. The relationship will tell you the service and how to position your service, how to find the niche. This is what we're looking for. And when you become that person, that dominant person in that niche, then you need Victor. Victor spent 20 minutes with this young guy. 20 minutes on the phone. He didn't know, just working out the seat of his pants. Victor spent 20 minutes with him, and he's almost at $500,000.
Let me say something else, Curtis. When Curtis said a dirty word that I don't say. I don't say low bid. My price is not low bid. My price is to bid that job based on the plans and specs that you gave me, and I will put on a reasonable markup and a reasonable profit for my efforts on that. The state of Tennessee wants low bid. As a business owner, we're going to give you the cost it takes us to do that, and we want a reward for giving you that project. Low bid is not in my category when I estimate. Don't even know what that means. And so your question, I get that every time. Matter of fact, I did a workshop. I don't know if I think I was in Alabama. I was doing a workshop, doing this exact workshop but it's like an 8-hour. I just did this in a couple of minutes, but it does take a long time to do this. And so there's a father-son company that was in the audience. And I've been working with the father who owned the concrete company. And the son was sitting in the audience at the workshop and said, if I did my bid, it was the same. If we did our bid that way, we would never win a job. And I turned to the father and said, Mr. So-and-so, how long have I been working with you? He said, about a year. I said, does this method seem familiar to you? He said, yeah, that's what you showed me. And I said, have you been bidding the method I showed you? Yes. I said, how many jobs have you won in the last 8 months? And I think he said 4 or 5. I said, all of them profitable? He said, so far, the 2 I'm working on, very profitable. And I went back to the son. I said, your father been doing this for a year. It's working. But it takes time to work the system and get that fear that you're going to be above everybody. Yeah, you probably are because you're doing it right. But you're also doing what Curtis is saying. You got the relationship. You're doing it with quality. You're doing it on time. And when something hiccups, you don't complain. You go out and take care of it and you come back. And then you turn around and say, how did I do? That's simple.
Hey, the other side you left out for that particular client. He couldn't sleep at night when he was doing his bid because he was thinking, he either left too much on the table or he put too much and he wasn't gonna get it. It just bothered him until he started understanding what the costs were. And Victor showed him where to look at the numbers. It started working for him. He could sleep at night.
Yeah, I got a question. How do we get to a billable hour? I'm starting my business, substation. I'm a one-man operation, but how do we get to a billable hour be profitable?
At the rate you are right now in starting your business, it's about forecasting. One is, what does it take to run your business money-wise on a full-time schedule, whether you have an office that you rent or you got that second bedroom. You got computers, you got all this stuff, software, you got the phone, you got the internet. You got to add all that up. Then you put in there what your salary is. And then you kind of run through, well, that's another class, but yeah, it can be done. It can be done. You might not have any records, but you do have to have some projections. Again, as we go into business, we got to have some projections. I mean, we dream about something at night, don't we? And most of the dreams we dream are forgotten as soon as we dream them, right? So you got to have a vision. A vision stays with you. So in your vision, you already picked out what you're going to look like as you're running your business. And in your vision, if you turn around, you might see a big old screen TV that you got to buy. In your vision, you might see a big mahogany. Well, you don't want to do all that, but you see certain things that requires cost. Put all that together, and you have it. And you know, you do have some idea of what other companies are charging somewhat, but that's just an idea. That's not your cost.